Hello everyone, my name is Harrison, and I am going to be talking about the books that I read over the summer. In total I read 16, and I figured I'd just kind of give my views on the books that I read. So let's just jump right into it. The first book that I read is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. I actually only read the Harry Potter series for the first time starting last year, and this year I concluded with the Deathly Hallows. I mean, there's really not much that hasn't been said about it, so I won't talk about it too much, but I do remember buying this book when it came out for the first time. I remember getting that poster from Barnes & Noble, Borders, if you remember that, of the front cover, you know, Harry on this side, Voldemort on the other one, reaching for the Elder Wand. And God, yeah, I read this last book and the Half-Blood Prince because I just wanted to be cool. I didn't even read 1 through 5. I just wanted to be with the in crowd. So I guess 15, 20 years later, I finally caught up. And yeah, I mean, God, I liked it. Of course, it's hard not to like Harry Potter unless you're kind of following with what's been happening with J.K. Rowling recently, which of course I am so wholeheartedly against everything she stands for, and I know it's kind of confusing for me to be reading a book like this, but it is a cultural phenomenon and I definitely wanted to be a part of it. And now that I got out of my system, I guess I'm okay saying that I've read the whole Harry Potter series. How would I say? What's my favorite chapter or moment? Honestly, it's going to be a small moment. It's going to be when the Weasley family reconnects with Percy Weasley after he says he's been a little shit about everything. So that's Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. I'm figuring out how I'm going to be doing this. It's just my first video. I'm going to be doing future book reviews later on, but that's my take on the Deathly Hallows. I liked it. So the second book I read in summertime. A lot of people have always been surprised that I haven't read this. If you excuse me, I know I'm glistening. I'm a big guy, so I sweat easily. And I've been setting up for this, gathering all the books, try to find them again. So you'll forgive my greasiness. But Jurassic Park is what I read for the second book in the summer. Oh my goodness. Oh, I didn't even take out the bookmark. Yeah, Jurassic Park, obviously very different from the film, which I feel everyone has grown up with. I remember buying this book so many damn times in my lifetime saying, I will read this, you know, but then I never did. But I guess 2024 was the year to finally get it out of my system. This, of course, Michael Crichton, I believe, is notoriously scientific. I think he is a scientist because there are huge chapters dedicated to just the science aspect of how the dinosaurs came to be. There's a bunch of computer code in there too, which I just kind of skimmed through that. But yeah, this is it better than the movie? Yes and no. Obviously the movie is great on its own, but this is just far more of a thriller, less of an action. I mean, there is action in it. Way more gorier too. I mean, the opening chapters has a baby being eaten by those little, I think they're called compies. I won't even bother saying the scientific name because I'll fuck it up. But yeah, this is just way more brutal, way more violent. I think it was really funny how John Hammond died in this. I mean, he's an old man, and basically his grandkids were the ones responsible for his demise, even though he did some pretty, he was not the loving grandfather like he was in the movie. But yeah, I think that's maybe my favorite moment in the book is John Hammond's demise in the book. Ellie leaping from the roof into a pool, I think, was pretty awesome. But yeah, finally read Jurassic Park, so there you go. And the next book I read, I don't know, my reading ranges from long adult books to YA, because I love YA. They're really easy and accessible to read. Is The Chronicles of Vladimir Todd. I believe this one is the first book. It is the first book. It's 8th grade bites. God, I think this one, I found it on Amazon randomly. Like there was like a collection on Amazon that said, "Hey, buy this," and it's been kind of sitting there for years. And I found this at a used bookstore for like, I don't know, a couple of bucks, and I figured, hey, why not? And ironically, the whole series was there, so I'll get to the next one. But yeah, the Tales of Vladimir, Todd. It's really easy. It's not very demanding. It's pretty straightforward. I think I just kind of read it to get through a reading slump I was going through during the summer, because it's nice and short, and the font is kind of spaced out and big, and I don't know. Let's see, my favorite moment. Well, first of all, I guess maybe I should talk about what the book is. It's about a teenage vampire going through 8th grade, and how he deals with being a vampire. I mean, it's pretty normal. He's not killing humans. I think he's like Edward in Twilight, and he's vegetarian. Oh wait, no. His guardian works at a hospital, and that's how he gets blood. But let's see, what's my favorite part in this book? I kind of need to remember. It went by so quick. I guess maybe his friend. His friend is very, very amusing. What is his friend's name? Because his name is Vladimir. Henry? Maybe I think his name is Henry. See, that's the thing. It's kind of like movies. If I read the book and it's not very memorable, I kind of forget a few things. But yeah, it was a quick little read. It's fun. It's cute. It's not like dark. It's really just very kind of Saturday after school special kind of approach to this. So I remember my roommate said he read these books because he said that looked like me growing up. I'm like, I believe it. So that's my little take on the Chronicles of Vladimir Todd. I guess every preceding book after this is going to be like 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, all the way to senior year. So I'll get to it when I get to it. The next book that I read is something called Wolf Song by T.J. Klune. So this was suggested to me randomly by a friend of mine that I've always been friends with on Instagram, but just never really kind of, I don't know, talked a lot. But when we realized that we both loved books, he gave me like a laundry list of books to read, and this was at the top of the list, and said, okay, I'll check it out. I was kind of hesitant at first because, I don't know, I'm not really into like the, I don't know, fantasy, romance, monster books, but I think I am now, because this book completely blew me away. It's pretty long. It's about maybe 500 or so pages, but it went by so quick. Basically, it's a story about this guy named Oxnard Matheson, growing up in a small town called Green Creek, and he happens to live next door to a house of werewolves, and he falls in love with one of them. And it's a really cute LGBT story, and I've never read a book that represented how these supernatural creatures would communicate, because it's so, I don't know, something so pure in the way that they communicate, because it's not with words, but feelings. But through the book, it's expressed through words. So, it's always like family, brothers, love, mother, father. So it's just the way they kind of represent the love, not even just between two lovers, but between family, is just so powerful. And the way it expresses deeper emotions like loss and depression is actually pretty interesting. Like how does a wolf deal with the loss of a family member? And this book kind of shows that, and kind of like the rise of the main character from just a confused, lost boy growing into teenage years and adulthood, and just the way it's told is very organic, and it just felt like by the end of this book you don't want anything bad to happen to any of the characters. And this has become one of my favorite books probably of the year, and I don't even know when it came out. When was this? It was when did this come out? This came out in 2016, so I'm a little far behind, but bear with me. I just barely finished Harry Potter this year. So yeah, I would definitely highly suggest this. My favorite moment in this book is, there's a lot. There is a lot of favorite moments in this book. It's hard to pick one, but I guess I think the moment that our main character finds out that he is in love with one of the werewolves is my favorite moment, because like he grows up with this character and he's just like a friend of his, but then he just kind of slowly realizes that, wait, oh shit, I'm attracted to you, and then it just grows from that. I love it. But yeah, Wolfsong, you haven't read it, definitely check it out. If you have read it, let me know your thoughts, because I love this book. I'm currently in the first 200 pages of the next book, which is called Raven Song. So but yeah, there you go, there's my review on Wolfsong. All right, and the next book that I read is I only read it because my roommate said that he has always wanted to read it, and then we just bought it at Barnes and Noble, and ironically, I finished it before him, and I'm not even sure where he's at in the book. I think he just gave up, but it's Long Live the Pumpkin Queen, which is the novelization sequel of The Nightmare Before Christmas. And, you know, The Night Before Christmas, it's another one of the movies I love. It follows now Pumpkin Queen Sally, who deals with becoming royalty in Halloween Town, and you know, naturally she doesn't like it, because you know they're kind of parading her around, showing her off, and she's a very private person anyways, and all she really kind of revolves around is all she really likes to talk about is her love for Jack, and how she would rather just be in a normal like kind of marriage with the Pumpkin King, as opposed to, you know, dealing with all the trivialities of being a queen, like making appearances, making speeches. But then everything changes when suddenly she wakes up one morning and finds out that the entire town and also connecting worlds have been put to sleep. They're in a deep sleep, and it turns out to be the Sandman. And there's a lot of revelations about who Sally is and where she comes from, and kind of like the whole revelation that she was kidnapped as a kid by Dr. Finkelstein. That was pretty intense. But I think that my favorite moment in this book is probably going to be when I think not the honeymoon in Valentine's Town, but I think I may get into spoilers, but it's the whole reason why the Sandman is defeated is because he just needed a nap. He needed a nap because the Sandman puts people to utter sleep, and he doesn't sleep himself. And it turns out that, you know, to stop being a fucking asshole, you just need to nap. And then suddenly he feels better. And I thought that was pretty amusing. I guess this is going to be spoiler based, so that's my little review and thoughts on Long Live the Pumpkin Queen. The next book that I read is part 3 in a 6-book series, and I think I only started reading this because of the movies that came out in the past few years. I'm of course referring to The Children of Dune by Frank Herbert. This is the 3rd book in the series. Book 2 is pretty easy to get through. Book 1 was long and arduous, but naturally I got through it. And this is a little bit more, you know, it's not like 700 pages like the first one. I think it's like maybe 500 or so pages. But yeah, just like the original, it's full of a bunch of political talk, and, you know, the deep kind of world-building things within the Dune books is still present in this. I think it was pretty crazy that the kids, to escape what's happening, were considering marrying each other. So there's like a bunch of incestuous stuff in there. But you know, whatever. Just because I've never been in that situation to get out of some fucked up shit political wise. So would I consider marrying my sister? No, I wouldn't. Maybe there might be a few steps that we could skip to get to, you know, better results. But yeah, Children of Dune. I think it helped knowing that I was a big fan growing up with the sci-fi series that starred James McAvoy, which I really liked, especially the music by Brian Tyler. So that kind of put that on while reading this, and it helped. I kind of knew that the boy he's turning into one of the big sandworms, big Shai-Hulud, so he's kind of mutating into that. I kind of know where the 4th book was leading, so I know what's coming. But yeah, Children of Dune. I think my favorite moment in this is probably going to be, let's see, what is my favorite moment in Children of Dune? I can't quite think about it. I don't want to say the incestuous thing. I think that's just more amusing. But I guess maybe the most amusing part of this book was the incestuous kind of themes. Yeah, no, there are definitely some steps that we can skip. But that's my review on Children of Dune. So the next book I read is Aragon by Christopher Paolini. This has been another fucking book that has been on my radar probably since high school. Like, it's one of those books like, I bought it so many times. I'll get to it. I'll read it. I've checked it out of the library in middle school, high school, and never read it, made it past the first chapter. And just this year was the year of Aragon, I suppose. Read it through, and man, this really does delve on the journey aspect to it. I remember like feeling just exhausted, like the characters were like just following their footsteps across vast plains. That's probably the only good thing that the movie did, was cutting out like a lot of the journey aspects. Of course, they fucked up too and pretty much cut like about 80-90% of the book out and just kept the bare basics, so much that it became, you know, a Star Wars ripoff with swords and dragons as opposed to lightsabers and the Force. But yeah, no, it went by really fast after a certain point. I did feel that it was I was like, we're getting near the end of the book and the story still hasn't like resolved. And like when we get to the chapter Battle Under Farthen Dur, I mean, look at that. That's like, that pretty much just the last part of this book is what wraps everything up with, you know, the fighting Durza, I think his name was, the villain, and you know how he's ultimately defeated. Even less. This is just all language and a sneak peek to the second book. But no, and it's not to say I didn't like it. It was just like, oh my god, this needed, movie-wise, because I'm the filmmaker and I mainly talk about movies. I'd say a huge chunk of this could have been, truncated and shortened, I guess. But, I'm no expert when it comes to writing books. Who knows? Maybe it needed it. But this was the first time that I actually utilized the map, and I'm like, where are these fuckers at? And I'm like, oh, they're right there. As opposed, that's where I kind of figured out where all they, where they were in the story. I think it's kind of funny though how they're like saying that, what is it, the elven capital of Ellesmere is hard to find, but I'm like, no, it's not. It's right there. See, Ellesmere. Go there. but yeah, no, that's my review on Aragon. I liked it. All right, and the next book that I read, I believe, is book 7. Yeah, book 7 in a series, Monster by Michael Grant. Last year, maybe the year before that, I zoomed through the whole Gone series with Gone, Hunger, Lies, Plague, Fear, and Light. I cheated there, right there. And, it just completely blew me away. I'm like, wow, this reads like a movie. And I just, like, the first one was like 700 pages, and I zoomed right through that in like a week. It was just so enthralling. And this is, book 7 is after the madness of the phase, the Fallout Alley Youth Zone. And this deals with new characters and old characters coming back from that incident, dealing with a new threat, which is a meteor that's the same one that crashed in Perdido Beach, crashing into Earth, and now there's going to be a lot of them, and there's people who accidentally get infected and people who intentionally infect themselves to gain powers. And I think everyone lost their powers when the big old bubble shield fell in the last book. And now they're just human, and a lot of them are depressed, alcoholics, and some have committed suicide. So this deals with the new threat and kind of sets us up for the next book. And, they kind of do that whole, at the ending, they could do that whole, like, Avengers ending. Like, it's a cliffhanger, not a cliffhanger, but like it's a tease that will get people to come back for the next book, because it reintroduces the main character from the first 6 books, because he doesn't make an appearance in this at all. So I did find this to be way more, like, vicious and violent. Like, there's people getting fucking wrecked in this, like blown to pieces, and there's like people being absorbed by a crazy ass starfish monster, and just people getting whacked in this in such horrific ways. And not that the other 6 books weren't horrific. I'm like, there were kids getting sucked into machines and being ripped to shreds, but like at least I think they were. But some fucked up shit happens to them, but just even more fucked up, bizarre shit happens in this book, with people getting offed. I think my favorite moment in this, and it's not really, it's I guess it is a moment, but like, there's a kid, I think in Ireland or Scotland or something, where he absorbs a bit of the asteroid that mutates you, and he turns into like a giant caterpillar and just eats people and houses. And it's like, it's not really directly related to the plot. It just sort of happens and it is immediately fixed by the end. They just blow him up, and I just thought that was like really funny that a little toddler gets infected and turns into the hungry caterpillar essentially, and they just fucking blow him up. But that's my take on Monster. I'm currently reading through the next book, which is, what is it? Villain, I think. Yeah, Hero, one of those. But yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. Way different than Gone, but that's just because, you know, we have an established universe with characters that we've come to know and love. So there you go. All right, so a controversial thing. Like Harry Potter, I've never read Twilight. So finally, I read Twilight this year. People always seem to give me shit for this, and I'm like, shut the fuck up. What book are you reading? Again, kind of following in line with the logic of why would I read this, because I'm not really into the fantasy romance thing. And I guess Wolfsong kind of opened. I think it was because of Wolfsong that I read Twilight. And who does it better? Well, probably Wolfsong. But you know, Twilight has a few things going for it. I did kind of enjoy the stuff that you don't really get in the movie. You know, the deeper thoughts, and it was really. I was kind of like doing this thing where I like reading books based on movies, where I like to compare what was different from the book versus the movie. And this is way different in the movie as far as how things unfold. Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like Harry Potter. There's not much that hasn't been said about this. I think for the longest time, I could never make it past the first chapter. And then I guess this year I did. And, you know, before you know it, the pages were falling off and off and off. And then finally I was at the end. I will say, you know, in the controversial, are you Team Edward or Team Jacob? I'd say for book one, I am definitely Team Jacob. And that might be because I'm native, but I just liked their little kind of exchanges here and there. They're so cute. But I was told by my cousin who loves Twilight that he does become a little shit in the second book, which I'm working through right now. So who knows, maybe that'll change. But at least Jacob doesn't want to kill you, Bella. Whatever. But that's I say my favorite moment in this book, in Twilight. Let's see. Oh, okay. I did like how this book actually goes in the backstory of Carlisle. And like the movies, you know, I feel a whole series on the backstory of Carlisle and just the whole adopted family would have been way more interesting than like the love story between Bella and Edward. And I know for a fact that we got a few spin-offs with like the short Second Life of Bree Tanner and the gender swap Twilight and like Twilight from the perspective of Edward. Like, fuck, Mrs. Meyer, Stephanie Meyer, I'll just say, do a whole series on the Carlisle family. Their histories genuinely seem way more interesting than Bella and Edward's. So, but yeah, that's probably my favorite part of the book is Carlisle's backstory. There you go. Alrighty, the next book that I read is something that was suggested to me on Amazon, and it's called In Memoriam by Alice Wynne, and it is a World War I LGBT gay. I guess that's repetitive. It's a romance story between two men in World War I, and it took me a while to get this going because just the way it's written, it's almost as if it were written in the early 1900s, and it took me a while to wrap myself around the way the prose with the way that it's written. But after a while, you just really start to get to know the characters, and suddenly you're rooting for them, and you just freak out every time one of them is in danger, and this thing does this book does a terrific job of, I guess we'll get into why one thing that I liked in it, in that in the book, when a soldier dies, and this obviously is probably stemming from real life as well, the commanders or whoever would have to write a letter to the family, describing, that their son died valiantly and, died without pain, and very generic kind of fill in the blank stuff, like, he was a brave man when he died, and, the men think of him fondly. But then there's a moment where one of the mothers of the fallen soldiers talks to one of our main characters and said, how did he actually die? I feel everyone gets these letters and they all say the same stuff, and, tell me how my son actually died. And then he does, and it was like horrifically, and like he was in pain for hours with his guts spilling out, and, it was like an elongated process of him dying. And the mother, I believe, who was getting this news, felt that was far better to know than the lies they were told in the letters, because I guess for some reason it just sort of closes the door and lets her know that, yeah, her son died, and at least now someone was honest about that death. And I think that was my favorite moment in the book. But yeah, no, once they get into war, it's a sprawling epic, and there's like descriptions of like the horrors of war that they see, like dead bodies rotting, and you're talking to one person one moment, and then suddenly a bullet flies through their head, showering you in your brains. So it was definitely unforgiving in that sense, and and it is slow paced. It is a pretty long book. At least it felt long. Because look at the font that they use. It's pretty. Trying to get I see. It's pretty small, I guess. So it's not like paste, or it's not like big font. Spaces between the words. I forget what that's called. Double spaced. But it's really an engaging story, and the romance, while it's beautiful and makes sense, especially when you're in kind of the horrors of war, the one thing I really liked about it too is that, while our main characters do survive, they're scarred physically and mentally, and they just kind of learn to live with that reality. I thought that was a pretty glum ending, despite them surviving. But yeah, no, it was absolutely beautiful. And my roommate has to find different places to put their drinks when they're in my room, because that's compliments to my roommate there. Book crime number 1, penalty, death. Alrighty, so the next book that I read is World War Z. This was a book I started maybe 2 years ago, and I just stopped reading it for some reason last year in January. And and I picked it back up, and I actually did something pretty interesting here. I listened alongside with the audiobook, which was just phenomenal. It's not like a book where one person reads it. They got a whole cast of people to come in and play the different characters that are being interviewed about the zombie war. It's I feel that this happened, and I was like, how could I forget this happened? Because the way it's written is just so wonderful. It makes you think that the World War Z, the zombie war, was fucking real. I think my favorite parts in this book, there's actually two stories that I really liked. One of them that I really liked is about the woman who gets kind of stranded in the Louisiana swamps, and she's kind of guided by this strange radio person to get to safety. That was pretty awesome, and whether or not she imagined her or not remains a mystery. I think maybe she didn't. I like to think that she didn't. My other favorite story, and ironically, of course, is the filmmaker as aspect of this, is about the aged filmmaker who goes out and actually films incidents happening around the World War Z, the zombie war, and his films are used as propaganda that props people up and it gives people hope. The whole fake study they did of people basically killing themselves after the war is over versus them after seeing these films not killing themselves kind of gives a testament to the power of cinema, even if it is fictional. They got Frank Darabont, I believe, to voice that character in the audiobook, which, if you don't know who that is, legendary filmmaker who made films like The Shawshank Redemption, The Green Mile, and The Mist, Stephen King book. But yeah, no, that's World War Z. I'm finally glad I got this off my currently reading list, and I'm glad I did. Well, I guess my other favorite part too is the Japanese guy who kind of rappels down his apartment building. It takes him 2 days, and he finds a samurai sword in one of them, and I thought that was pretty awesome too. So that's my review on World War Z. All right, the next book I read is something called Melonhead Mayhem by Alex Ebenstein. Honestly, the only reason why I bought this is for this cover. Just look at it. The guy, it's about these little monster gremlin things that kind of look like gremlins had sex with a pumpkin head, hence Melonhead. And you know, they're little mischievous little creatures who, well, I guess we'll get into the plot real quick. It's about these two cousins who kind of come home to bury grandma, and they find a videotape in grandma's closet. Thankfully, it wasn't a sex tape, and ends up being like a little cheap 80s horror movie about these creatures. But then, I guess, kind of like The Ring, they're summoned to the power of the tape, and they start attacking them, and they try to kill them right where they are. They go into like a hole in the ground where the movie was shot, and they try to end it all. But do they end it? That remains to be seen. But yeah, no, I just bought it because of the cover, because that just kind of throws back to movies that I watched growing up as a kid. And I related very much to these characters because, you know, they all speak of movies that I grew up watching, like Critters and, well, mainly just Critters mainly. But they loved horror, and it was all the movies that I used to rent as a kid from video stores, little small hole in the wall places that smelled like plastic and had like wooden walls, like, you know, the I don't know, those walls from like the 80s. You know, probably exactly what I'm talking about. But yeah, this kind of tickled my fancy a bit because it was horror. It was very short, so it was really easy to read. Short chapters, not too bad on the font, I guess. But yeah, really brutal too. Nice and gory. I think it's been described as the Goosebumps series for adults, even though I think there is a Goosebumps series for adults. Fear Street? I don't know. Haven't read any of those yet. But yeah, if you were looking for a quick, fun little read, Melonhead Mayhem is nice, fun, easy, short, accessible, and plus, for that artwork alone, I hope it's focusing. For that artwork alone, you have to give it a shot. The next book I read, so as I normally do, I go to a bookstore and I just kind of look at, you know, the new releases or something that the staff recommends. And this one stood out because it was a bright pink cover. Open Throat, and I'm like, okay, that caught my eye. So I turned it around and then I read the first sentence of this book, and it says, "A queer and dangerously hungry mountain lion lives in the drought-devastated land under the Hollywood sign." And I'm all like, that's all I need. So I bought it and read it, and it's such a fast read. Not only is it short, but like the book is kind of written like Cormac McCarthy's The Road, and that kind of each thought is separated into its own sentence, and it's like written with you know, big old gaps in between. Like, look at that right there. So it's all just deep philosophical musings of a gay mountain lion living under the Hollywood sign. And he's like hungry, and he's like considering eating someone, but he doesn't want to because the homeless shelter that he kind of lives by, not homeless shelter, but a commune of homeless people have sort of inadvertently become his friends, and he sort of has become its protector in some sense. Yeah, it's just so cute and so sad. Like, I never thought I'd like understand like the loneliness of a gay mountain lion. I never thought I'd say that before, but it's such a quick read. It's beautiful, and it's written in a way where there's a lot of like errors, like not a lot of the sentence are capitalized. There's no quotations, no commas, there's nothing grammatically correct about the book, but that's not the point of it. It's just the internal thoughts of an isolated mountain lion who just happens to be gay or have queer thoughts, who is just trying to find connection any way that he can, you know? And it goes into his backstory and how his dad was abusive, and, you know, it's crazy just for it to be about a mountain lion, but it just fucking works. But yeah, I highly suggest this. It's a quick read, and I think you might get some thought out of it. I think my favorite part in this book is when I think it's the opening actually, where he stumbles upon a two guys engaging in BDSM under the Hollywood sign, I believe. Like there's whipping and like stuff, and I thought that was like, what are these people doing? Are they hurting each other? Do they like each other? And that's just what the Mountain Lion's thinking. And I just, yeah, I would definitely suggest Open Throat by Henry Hoke. Alrighty, so the next book I read is The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs by Steve Brusatte. This is, I remember kind of Googling a long time ago because I think I just had a very big old rise in interest in dinosaurs after I finished Jurassic Park. And I Googled like best book about dinosaurs, that wasn't fictional. And this one came up, The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs. So I actually started reading this and then stopped around chapter 6 because I feared that this book was just about this guy digging up dinosaur bones, which I guess maybe if you're interested in that, the first 6 chapters will grip you. But it did not grip me, and I kind of gave up on it but by chapter 6. But then ironically, when I picked it up again to finish reading it, chapter 6 is when it really started getting into the dinosaurs. And I think my favorite chapter in this book, I mean, come on, everyone's favorite dinosaur is probably the Tyrannosaurus Rex. And maybe he knew that because he dedicated a whole chapter about the Tyrannosaurus Rex. For this, oh god, I struggled a lot with like the pronunciations of certain dinosaurs, like Edmontosaurus. I can't really find, but the book has like a lot of the Latin sayings or the scientific words for the dinosaurs, and I just kind of skimmed through that and be like blah 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 Saurus. But oh, there we go, like Caudipteryx, Protarchaeopteryx, Beeposaurus, Microraptor. I could say Microraptor. But yeah, I mean, I think my favorite chapters were about, again, the Tyrannosaurus Rex and the chapter where the asteroid hits Earth. The way it paints a picture on how absolutely devastating that was is haunting, and just kind of put me in the theoretical shoes of the dinosaurs and what they may have seen that day. But God, yeah, this was a wonderful read. I now know a little bit more about dinosaurs than I did before, and was also my first kind of unofficial foray into nonfiction, and inspired me to pick up another book, which I'm about to talk about pretty soon. So if you like dinosaurs, and who doesn't, I highly suggest The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs. Speaking of nonfiction, the next book I read was something called Some New Kind of Kick, a memoir by Kid Congo Powers with Chris Campton. Yeah, Campton. So I was at Zio Records in June, which, as you know, is Pride Month. And usually they have like a big old section because they sell books, movies, CDs, and all that stuff. And they have like a whole section dedicated to gay content, gay movies, gay books, gay music. And this book was on there. And I'm not going to lie, that caught my eye because I thought this guy looked pretty damn cute. And he does. There's something mysterious and sexy and alluring about him. And I'm like, oh, okay, this looks interesting. And I almost didn't buy it because when I read like the inside stuff here, it's a memoir. It's a nonfiction book. But because I had finished The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs, I thought that was fascinating. I thought it would be interesting to see what this guy's story is, and it was absolutely enthralling. Basically, it's about, an intimate coming-of-age memoir by legendary guitarist Kid Congo Powers, detailing his experiences as a young, queer Mexican-American in 1970s Los Angeles through his rise in the glam rock and punk rock scenes. That had a lot of words that I liked. I love coming-of-age dramas, especially if it's books and movies. Him being queer, Mexican, American in the 1970s, Los Angeles. Oh, and not only that, but he's a musician in the glam rock and punk rock music genres. So I'm like, okay, all right, you sold me. So I bought it just on that alone. And, he is very direct with, his problems. He talks openly about tragedy, his drug abuse, his addiction to sex and hard drugs, heroin, and just everything. He's very, very honest with a lot of the stuff that he went through. And I think my favorite parts in the book is probably this his upbringing, the actual coming of age aspect, you know, everything before he was like 20, just because, you know, his interest in music, on how it began, and how he was the first person to create the fan club for the Ramones, I believe. Yes. You know, and then I think the second half of the book is dealing with like his drug addiction as going into adulthood, and his friendship with lots of people, and him eventually becoming a guitarist for Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. And you know, it was just a fascinating foray into such a fascinating life, you know, as dark and glum as it was. So yeah, I just, you know, if you like cute guys on book covers, definitely give it a look, because it's a fantastic book, and it actually introduced me to a lot of music that I had the words to describe but just never knew how to describe them, I guess. And I guess the genre that I unknowingly was longing to hear more of was the oh god, what was it? Well, this is embarrassing. I just finished this a couple weeks ago. But, you know, just like rock mixed with country. I forget what it's called. But I do have a lot of the bands he mentioned saved on my Spotify now. So through him, I was able to expose myself to other genres of music as opposed to what I normally listen to, which is classical and film scores. So awesome. So if you were looking for a dark, hopeful, coming of age non-fiction memoir about a gay Mexican-American guitarist growing up in 1970s Los Angeles, give this a shot. So the next book I read is something called Shudder by Ramona Emerson, and I freaked out buying this book because it was selected for my local library's Chat and Chew, and we were having a meeting on a Monday, and I got this book on a Sunday, and I was like, oh my god, I got to read through this because we're going to talk about it. But it turns out we're going to talk about it in November. But I'm so glad that I bought this book anyways, because even if it wasn't like something I had to finish in like less than a day, it went by so quick. Like I'd never really delved into like the thriller suspense books, but now I kind of want to. But I felt this helped. The content matter of this book is what helped a lot too, because the main character is Navajo. I'm Navajo. She's also a photographer. I'm a photographer. She also has a great love of cinema. I love cinema. For those who know, and she just happens to see dead people, and she has the job of being the crime scene photographer. Of, you know, she was photographing like decimated corpses and dead people, and you know, I think we all have a natural draw to you know, macabre stuff like that. You know, that whole concept of driving by a car wreck to see, ooh, is there like someone dead over there? You know, that kind of delves into that too. And you know, and I love like serial killer stuff, and this has a lot of fucked up stuff in it, especially with the first chapter is just describing the hell out of a crime scene. She's describing like, oh yeah, and this body got run over like 50 times and was, you know, splattered across the freeway like 50 feet, and you know, I'm like, oh, okay. But yeah, no, it's absolutely fantastic. Goes by, it's a literal page turner, and it also helped that she was Navajo, and helped me understand even a bit more about that part of me, culturally speaking, because while I am Navajo, I didn't grow up on a Navajo reservation. I grew up on a Yavapai reservation pretty close to Phoenix, so that's why I don't really have a Nrez accent. But yeah, no, absolutely fascinating book. I think my favorite scene in this is as it kind of flashes back and forth between her current life as an adult and her upbringing on the reservation as a kid. And, you know, she's a character who can see dead people. So when she's at school, she befriends this little girl. And then that little girl ends up playing like a horrific prank on her classmates. And she actually takes a picture of her. And then when she develops it, the photo is all black. So I'm like, yeah. So that was pretty creepy. So yeah, this one actually got into my skin a little. So I would definitely suggest, if you love horror, crimes, true crime, thrillers, suspense, supernatural stuff, this might be your book. And finally, last but not least, the book I finished just a couple days ago, a whopping 700-page epic from Clive Barker, Cold Heart Canyon. God, I think I only read one book by Clive Barker before, and that was The Hellbound Heart, which is just like a fucking short novella. So jumping into this behemoth was very new, and initially it took me a while to get into it. Like the first part of this book, you know, basically describes like the slow demise of our main character's dog, which was just depressing. But then it gets into, it's about this really good-looking movie star who gets a botched plastic surgery done on him, and he goes into this abandoned canyon in the Hollywood Hills to recover in a mansion. But then there's all this stuff happening in the mansion. There's this mysterious lady who lives in the guest house, and there's a lot that unfolds with that. And there's this mysterious room in the attic, which is something really bizarre and supernatural. Basically, it's just like a room full of tiles that were designed basically by the devil's wife, Lilith. And it just, whoever goes in there, their lives are just forever kind of, they become addicted to its power. And the lady who lives in the guest house is someone who would invite movie stars from the golden age of cinema, like Douglas Fairbanks and people from the 1930s, 1920s to come in, and they used to have like orgies. And this thing describes in great detail the kind of shit that they did at these orgies. And I'm like, Clive Barker, you imaginative motherfucker. Because Clive Barker himself is already kind of like, he created the Hellraiser series, so that already comes with its own kind of themes of BDSM and sexual torture that gets people off, and this really goes into that. And I feel, having seen the movie Babylon, kind of prepared me for the madness that ensued in a lot of these chapters, because there's a lot of stuff that happened in this book that happened in that opening party of Babylon. So I guess it's not so far-fetched, in that age of time. I guess those stars really knew how to fucking party. You got a bunch of cocaine in a room, an elephant, a few animals, who knows what the hell will happen. But this book delves into that. But not only that, it's so intricately paced, it's detailed, it's fantastic, it's dark, it's intriguing, and there's just no there's no seatbelts for the derangement the deranged stuff that happens in this book. So I would expect nothing less from Clive Barker, and I feel that maybe this might be his longest book, and I hope it is, because I really want to check out his other stuff. But this went by so quick. I think the first half is a little bit of a trudge to go through, but the second half just like goes right through the pages. But if you read this, let me know your thoughts. But that's Cold Heart Canyon. There's more to it. I mean, there's a fucking 700 pages worth of shit to get into, but that's my brief review on Cold Heart Canyon. So those are all the books that I read in the summer. What I'm going to do is that next year, when winter ends, I'll talk about the books that I read during the winter. Just like I did with this. Maybe it'll be 16, maybe it'll be significantly less or more. I don't know. We'll find out. But my name's Harrison. I hope you've enjoyed me talking about the books that I've read, and maybe may have piqued your interest in a few of these books. So if you want to check those out, try to buy local. Go to your local bookstore that isn't Barnes & Noble or Walmart or Target, and try to find these in your local bookstore. For me, I really like going to the Poisoned Apple bookstore here in Scottsdale. At least I think it is called the Poisoned Apple. The Poisoned Pen a bookstore. So if you're in Arizona, Phoenix specifically, give that a look-see. I've got a fantastic little shop there. Feels very homey, very more personal too. So I also like buying used books at Goodwill. Also, Zia Records has a pretty good, awesome collection sometimes. So you never know what you might find. But I hope you've enjoyed this video. You can find me on Instagram at Harrison Bahi, and also if you want to follow my filmmaking YouTube channel, you can find me at Navajo Joe Films. Just kind of look that up on YouTube. So I'll also include links and shit down here. So there you go. I hope you have a very good day. Thank you for watching.